The weight of words, Dr. Cassandra Vale adjusted her translation collar for the third time, its neural interface humming softly against her neck. The crystalline amphitheater of Nithar stretched before her, carved from living stone that pulsed. With bioluminescent veins, thousands of Ellerin had gathered for this historic moment, their elongated forms draped in ceremonial robes that shifted color with their emotions. "Remember, Cassie," whispered Captain Marcus Torres through her earpiece. "This is humanity's first formal address to their entire spiritual council. No pressure." Cassandra wiped her palms on her diplomatic uniform. At 28, she was the youngest xenolinguist ever assigned to a first contact mission. Her colleagues had questioned the decision, but Director Huang had insisted her neural patterns showed unprecedented compatibility with the prototype translators. The Ellerin Prime Speaker, V. gestured with 4 graceful arms toward the central podium. His skin rippled through shades of deep purple and gold, indicating solemn reverence. The crowd fell silent, their collective breathing creating a haunting harmonic that resonated through the chamber. "The young speaker of distant stars will now honor us with words," Velener announced, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. Cassandra stepped forward, feeling the eyes of 2 species upon her. The Ellerin believed that language was the fundamental force of creation, that words could reshape reality itself. Their ceremonies weren't mere rituals. They were acts of cosmic engineering. She'd spent weeks preparing the perfect phrase, something that would encapsulate humanity's desire for peaceful coexistence. The translation matrix had run thousands of simulations, ensuring cultural sensitivity and linguistic accuracy. "We come in mutual understanding and light," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The translator hummed, neural pathways firing as it processed her words through layers of linguistic analysis. But something flickered a momentary disruption in the quantum field that powered the device. The translation shifted, subtle but catastrophic. What emerged in the flowing, melodic language of the Ellerin was, "I offer myself in sacred union under your stars." The reaction was immediate. Every Ellerin in the amphitheater froze, their skin shifting to pure white, the color of shock and awe. Velener's 4 eyes widened, and he dropped to his knees. The silence stretched until ritual drums began there. Ancient rhythm from the temple's depths. "What did I say?" Cassandra whispered into her comb. "The translation matrix is showing." Captain Torres' voice cut out as ceremonial guards approached with flowing movements. Too late. Cassandra realized that her words had triggered something beyond diplomacy. The Ellerin moved toward her, not with anger or confusion, but with the reverence reserved for their most sacred rites. She had inadvertently invoked an ancient ceremony that would bind her fate to their civilization forever. The Sanctum of Stars. Ellerin guards approached with movements that seemed to flow like water, their ceremonial staffs creating soft chimes that harmonized with the drums. Cassandra instinctively stepped back, but Captain Torres' urgent voice crackled through her earpiece. "Don't resist. They're treating you as sacred now." Velener rose, his skin now cycling through colors she'd never seen before, deep indigos, shot through with silver, indicating profound spiritual significance. "The Bridgewalker has spoken the ancient words," he announced to the assembly. "The rite of stellar binding must commence." "Wait," Cassandra said, her translator working normally now. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There are no misunderstandings in the sacred tongue," Velener replied gently. "Your words have called forth the ceremony that has waited for 3,000 cycles. You are the first star-distant one to speak the offering of union." The guards flanked her, not restraining but guiding, as the amphitheater transformed around them. Bioluminescent patterns flowed across the walls, responding to the ritual drums. The assembled Ellerin began a low, harmonic chant that seemed to resonate in her bones. Through her comb, She heard Director Huang's panicked voice. "Cassandra, we're reading massive energy signatures from the temple. What's happening?" "I'm being taken to their most sacred space," she whispered. The translation glitched. "I said something about sacred union instead of mutual understanding. Can you refuse? Back out somehow?" Valener, acute hearing, caught her words. To refuse. The right once spoken would wound the cosmic order itself. The bridge walker must complete what she has begun, or both our peoples will suffer the consequences of broken celestial bonds. They ascended through corridors that seemed to breathe with living energy. The walls were covered in intricate murals depicting the history of the Ellerin, their evolution from primitive beings to masters of spiritual technology. At the center of each mural was a recurring figure, a being of two natures standing between stars. "The bridge walker," Valener explained, noticing her attention. "For millennia, we have prophesied that one would come who could unite the consciousness of different species. Your words tonight suggest that you are she." The sanctum of stars opened before them, a vast chamber with a ceiling that seemed to contain actual space, complete with swirling galaxies and nebulae. At the center stood an altar made of crystallized starlight, pulsing with energy that made Cassandra's translator collar hum in harmony. "I'm not who you think I am," she said desperately. "I'm just a linguist. I made a mistake." Valener's skin shifted to gentle gold. "In our understanding, there are no mistakes in the sacred tongue, only revelations of deeper truth. The Rite will show us what reality you have chosen to create." The binding begins the sanctum of stars, pulsed with otherworldly energy as more Ellerin entered, the high speakers, their robes trailing starlight. Cassandra felt increasingly small in the vast chamber, her human form dwarfed by beings who seemed to embody the cosmos itself. "The preliminary rituals must be observed," announced Elder Kethmira, whose ancient skin held the deep blue of distant galaxies. "The bridge walker must understand the nature of what she has invoked." Through her Cassandra heard frantic discussions between Captain Torres and Director Huang. The diplomatic team was in chaos, trying to understand what had gone wrong and how to extract her without causing an interstellar incident. "Cassandra," came Dr. James Mitchell's voice, the mission's chief cultural advisor. "Whatever you do, don't interrupt their ceremony. The Ellerin have fought wars over broken rituals. We need to let this play out." But Cassandra was no longer listening to the human voices. The chamber around her had begun to sing a deep, resonant harmony that seemed to emerge from the crystalline walls themselves. The gathered Ellerin joined the song, their voices weaving together in patterns that made her translation collar spark with overload. "The rite of stellar binding," Valener explained, his voice somehow audible despite the overwhelming chorus, "is not what your people might fear. It is not about ownership or control. It is about becoming a living conduit between the consciousness of two species." The altar before them shimmered, and holographic images began to form scenes from Ellerin history, showing previous bridgewalkers, beings who had undergone the rite to unite warring factions of their own people. But she was seeing something unprecedented, the first attempt to bridge two entirely different species. "What will happen to me?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer would be beyond human comprehension. "You will become more than human," Elder Kethmira replied, "but you will also remain human. The bridgewalker exists in both states simultaneously, a quantum consciousness that can translate not just words, but the very essence of thought and feeling between species." The crystalline altar began to resonate with her heartbeat, and Cassandra felt something stirring in her mind, a presence that wasn't her own, but wasn't entirely alien either. It was the collective consciousness of the Ellerin, gentle and vast, touching the edges of her thoughts. "I can feel you," she whispered in wonder. "And we can feel you," Valener responded. "The binding has begun." But the choice remains yours. Bridge Walker. You can still refuse, though the consequences would be ... significant. Through the alien presence in her mind, Cassandra sensed what those consequences might be. A diplomatic mission would fail. The misunderstanding would be seen as human deception. The two species would withdraw from each other, possibly forever. But if she continued, if she accepted this transformation, she would become something new, a bridge between worlds, carrying the hopes and fears of both species within her consciousness. Singing reached a crescendo, and Cassandra felt the moment of choice approaching like a wave of starlight. The transformation, the wave of starlight, crashed over Cassandra, and suddenly she was no longer standing in the sanctum, she was floating in the space between spaces, surrounded by the collective memories of the Ellerin. She experienced their evolution across millennia, felt their first tentative reach toward the stars, witnessed their development of consciousness-based technology. But more than that, she felt their loneliness. For all their spiritual advancement, the Ellerin had never encountered another species capable of true communion. They had been alone in the universe for so long that the possibility of connection had become the central pillar of their faith. Now you understand, Valanares' voice echoed across the cosmic space. The rite of stellar binding was not created for conquest or control. It was created for hope. Cassandra felt her consciousness expanding, stretching to encompass thoughts and emotions that had no human equivalent. She was still herself, but she was also becoming something more, a vessel for understanding that transcended the boundaries of species. Back in the physical realm, the assembled Ellerin watched as her body began to change. Her skin took on a subtle luminescence, and her eyes reflected the deep space visible through the sanctum ceiling. The transformation was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Through her comb, she heard Captain Torres' voice, tight with concern. "Cassandra, your vital signs are off the charts. Are you still with us?" "I'm here," she replied, though her voice now carried harmonics that made the translator caller sing. "I'm still me, but I'm also ... more." The Ellerin consciousness, flowing through her, brought understanding of their deepest fears and hopes. They had watched humanity's arrival with a mixture of excitement and terror. Here was a species that might finally understand them, but also one that might reject them if the first contact failed. "The binding is nearly complete," Elder Kethmira announced, "but the bridge walker must choose her final form. Will she remain primarily human, with Ellerin consciousness as a secondary layer? Or will she become something entirely new?" Cassandra felt the weight of the choice. She could feel the human diplomatic team's fear and confusion, their desperate need for her to remain recognizably human. But she also felt the Ellerin's yearning for true connection, their hope that she might become the bridge they had prophesied. "There's a third option," she said, the words coming from both her human knowledge and her expanding alien awareness. "I don't have to choose between human and Ellerin. I can be both, fully and completely." The sanctum filled with a harmony of approval from the assembled Ellerin. Valana's skin shifted to brilliant gold. The bridge walker has chosen the path of balance. She will be the first of her kind, a being who exists fully in both consciousness states. The transformation reached its peak, and Cassandra felt her awareness split and multiply. She was still Dr. Cassandra Vale, human xenolinguist, but she was also something unprecedented, a living translation between species, capable of carrying the thoughts and feelings of both humanity and the Ellerin. When the light faded, she stood, changed but recognizable, her eyes now holding depths that seemed to contain stars. The bridge between worlds. 6 months after the ceremony, Cassandra stood in the newly constructed Embassy of Minds, a building that existed simultaneously in human architectural style and Ellerin crystalline growth patterns. She had become exactly what Vilanar had predicted, a living bridge between species, capable of translating not just words, but the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. The transformation had not been without cost. She could no longer return to Earth permanently. Her modified consciousness required the harmonic frequencies of Nithar to remain stable. But she had gained something unprecedented, the ability to facilitate perfect understanding between species that had evolved under different stars. "The trade agreements are ready for review," Captain Torres said, entering her office. He had adapted well to her transformation, though she could sense his continued amazement at her changed nature. "Both sides are satisfied with the terms." Cassandra nodded. Her awareness simultaneously focused on the human documents and the Ellerin consciousness patterns that surrounded them. She could feel the satisfaction of both species, the genuine progress toward cooperation that her existence had made possible. "There's something else," Torres continued. "We've received word from Earth. The Kepler mission has detected signs of another intelligent species in the Vega system. They're requesting a bridge walker." Through her enhanced awareness, Cassandra felt the stirring of excitement from the Ellerin. They had begun to understand that her transformation was not an ending, but a beginning, the first step toward a galaxy-wide community of consciousness. "I can't leave Nithar," she said. "My consciousness is bonded to this world. But ... She paused, feeling the flow of possibilities through the Ellerin collective. "I can teach others. The ritual can be adapted for different species combinations." Valanor materialized in the doorway, his skin showing the deep purple of profound thought. "The Council of Speakers has approved the establishment of the Bridge Walker Academy. We will train volunteers from both species to undergo the transformation." Cassandra felt a surge of hope from both her human and Ellerin consciousness. The mistaken translation that had pulled her into an alien rite had become the foundation for something greater, a new form of interspecies cooperation based on literal understanding. "Director Huang is requesting a full report," Torres said. "She wants to know if you regret the translation error." Cassandra smiled, her expression carrying both human warmth and Ellerin luminescence. "Tell her it wasn't an error. It was evolution." Through her expanded awareness, she felt the pulse of the galaxy itself, countless species waiting to be discovered, understood, and welcomed into the growing community of consciousness. Her transformation had been just the beginning. The Bridge Walker Academy would ensure that humanity's future among the stars would be built on perfect understanding, one consciousness at a time. And at the center of it all, Dr. Cassandra Vale continued to exist as living proof that sometimes the most profound discoveries come from the most unexpected mistakes. The stars themselves seemed to sing in harmony with their transformed consciousness, welcoming humanity into the vast community of minds that awaited among the galaxies.